First, you need to understand all of the different settings, and there are quite a few of them. So let's go over each. First up is attack. Attack sets the speed at which the compressor activates after the signal crosses the threshold. So a slower attack time will allow the beginning of the signal to pass through untouched before applying the compressor, whereas a fast attack time will apply the compressor almost immediately. Next up is release. Release sets the speed at which the compressor lets go once the signal goes back under the threshold. So a release time that is too short can produce a choppy or jittery sound, whereas a release time that is too long can result in a signal sounding squashed. Now let's talk about gain, the gain setting on a compressor. Gain allows you to restore the signal back to its original level before compression. So if you're compressing the signal by 6 dB, you can apply 6 dB of gain to bring the signal back to where it was. In essence, this increases the loudness of the uncompressed signal by 6 dB while keeping the compressed signal where it was to begin with. All right, next up, threshold. Threshold determines when the compressor kicks in. So if a threshold is set to negative 30 dB, the compressor will start working when the signal gets louder than negative 30 dB. Now let's talk about ratio. Ratio determines how much compression is applied. For example, if the ratio is set to 4:1, for every 4 dB that signal crosses over the threshold, it will be compressed down to 1 dB. So if a signal crossed the threshold by 8 dB, only a 2 dB increase would be heard. Only 2 more settings to talk about, so hang with me. The knee setting determines how the compressor responds once the signal crosses over the threshold. A hard knee clamps down right away, while a soft knee causes the compressor to kind of gradually kick in as the signal gets further past the threshold. The last compressor setting is the compressor type. You have 4 options. Manual peak and manual RMS are similar options. Both allow you to set your attack and release times manually. The difference is that peak compression will be more thorough, compressing everything that crosses over the threshold, whereas RMS compression will be a bit more tolerant and therefore less noticeable. So if you want compression to be noticeable, use peak. If you want it to be more transparent, use RMS. The other 2 options set attack and release times automatically. Auto Slow Opto will give you a more transparent compression, whereas Auto Punch Bag will function more aggressively. I recommend using compression on every vocal channel. You see, vocals have this wide dynamic range. They can sing soft or really belt it out, and a compressor takes this wide range of volume and makes it as narrow as you want it to be. But keep in mind, dynamic range on a vocal is good, so you don't want to cut it too much. You just simply want to make it manageable. You want to be able to bring them to the front of the mix while not having to worry about their power note, making everybody in the room cover their ears. Now, there are settings on the compressor that will be the same for every vocal, so let's go over those first.
This is only one lesson from our QU Mastery course. Unlock the fastest way to master the QU at collaborateworship.com/QU.
Set the ratio to 3:1. Set gain to plus 4 dB. Set the compressor type to Auto Slow Opto. Now there is one setting that you'll have to dial in for each vocalist, and that's the threshold. You'll want to set this while the vocalist is really singing out. So the best time is while they're practicing with the band. Because if you single them out and have them sing by themselves, they probably aren't going to sing the same as they would with the band playing. So while they're singing out, adjust the threshold using the gain reduction meter. This is that little gray meter on the compressor settings screen. You'll want to adjust the threshold so that it reads around the same place where the green meets the yellow on the gain level meter. During the quiet moments of a song, it may not register at all, and that's okay. You just want to be compressing like I showed you whenever they are really singing out. Now keep in mind, if you compress more than what I showed you, the vocal starts to sound lifeless and smashed. So if you start to notice the vocal losing its shine, the first place to check is the compressor. Probably too aggressive. Now that you know how to use a compressor on vocals, you'll also need to use a compressor on your instruments. I've included a compressor settings cheat sheet below to get you started.